Hey guys, welcome back. So, which I said I wasn't going to say anymore. Looking at our servo and then looking at the clevis there. Remember, we're going to run the tube that holds the cable right to about here. But just looking at, even if I were to solder directly to this clevis, it's I'd have to have the tube, back to about here to give it enough room to go back and forth. So the easiest solution, I think, is going to be to just flip that servo around. So let's go ahead and do that, and that way I can run the tube probably right up to the edge here, because that'll give us probably about a 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch more right there. Plus it'll be easier to get in there if something goes wrong. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so I'm putting this back on just to give me some leverage here, because I've got none. Okay, let's try this now, the other way. So there we go. I'm going to go ahead and put the screws back in, and we'll be ready for the next step. Now you can see when the servo moves, I've got that much room now for travel. So in my previous video I said I wasn't going to use this round servo arm. I am, but I'm going to cut off the stuff that we don't need. Kind of on a budget right now, so maybe eventually I'll get some other arms, but the ones that I have are like, I don't know, I just think they're too big, and I like the white, and we can make this work. So I'm gonna go ahead and use this, and I guess that's about it. So the next step now is we need to construct a little block right about here that we'll be able to hook our tube up to, that will put it about the same level as this arm right here. So this is what I came up with. Basically I just cut a little groove in here. I just used the end of my little wrench here, and that will line up. You can see it lines up with our clevis there. So what I'm going to do is flip this around, glue it onto the tube, and then we'll have one unit that we can maneuver into place, and then we'll end up epoxying on the inside there. So I've got some 5-minute epoxy all mixed up. I've already pre-sanded the tube so that we're pretty much ready to go. So all I'm going to do is drop some epoxy in here, like that. And okay, we're just gonna pop that on there. Oop. And hold it in place for a little bit. So alright, while I wait for this to dry, I'll let you guys all fast forward and skip you on to the next step. I've got my block epoxied on here. I put the cable in just to make sure that it ran freely and everything. Now the block, I did have to sand at an angle so that when we put it inside here, it'll go straight to the clevis, rather than if I left it flat, it would actually be going up at an angle. So Kind of hard to explain, but anyways, I tapered it like that. I just kind of put little holes in here so that when we epoxy this, it'll give something for the epoxy, a little bit more for it to adhere to. I'm mixing up 5-minute epoxy right now. And I did go ahead and I bought, I'm going to use a ball link on this. Might get some flack for that, but I needed to shorten the length of the connection and the clevis and all that stuff to get it just right. I ended up getting just this little 256 threaded ball link. It shortens everything significantly, and I can't just solder directly to this because then both sides would be soldered and then I'd never be able to get it off or adjust it or anything like that. So I got this one that comes with the little connection point for the cable to solder to. So I think it'll work just fine. It's very little effort to move it, so I don't think we're going to run into any issues. Okay, I mixed a little bit of milled fiberglass with this epoxy just to give it a little bit of strength. Okay, probably should have let the epoxy set up just a little bit longer, but okay, let's give that a go and see what happens here. Let's see if we can do this neatly. Oh, that's exactly what I didn't want to happen. Okay, so we are going to pretend that that is going to be the clevis that we're using, even though we're not. I just want to make sure that it's straight. We want it to be parallel with the panel line here going up. And I think that looks really good. So I'm going to let this sit. I have to hold it here, so let the epoxy cure. And believe it or not, even though it flopped around inside there, I think we did it pretty well mess free. Okay, other than the cramp that's forming in my hand, I think that's going to work out pretty good. So I'm going to let that dry and meet you at the next step. Okay, the epoxies had a chance to dry here, so I've got our handy dandy light on the camcorder on so we can get kind of a close-up. So you can see the push rod, the cable is nice and straight when the servo's in the neutral position. If we go down and look in there, we can see the block we just installed with the tube, and this will be a tougher shot to get, but you can see the tube runs there, goes along the duct, and then crosses over to the other side, and you can see right back there, there's our cable. It's kind of hard to focus, but there we go. You can see when we push it, very little resistance, so we should be able to have enough torque. And then right there where the tube runs, I'll go ahead and epoxy that to the side of the fuselage just to make sure it's totally rigid, even though it looks pretty darn good right now. So, alright, so I'm going to go ahead, I don't think I'm going to make a video, but I'm going to go ahead and solder the ball link onto the end here. and then I'll go ahead and solder the other clevis onto this side that attaches to our nose gear. Here's our nose gear. And there's the one that came with the cable. That actually is thinner than the one that I had on there before, which was actually that one, so it doesn't rub up against the duct like the last one did. Can't really see where it was, but you can just barely make out where it was rubbing up against. So anyhow, I'm gonna go ahead and solder those on, and we'll see if we can't get a video of everything attached.